Welcome to Empires in English. Let's unlock your future. Start thinking and living in English. Subscribe and let's begin.
How many times have you opened an English textbook, downloaded an English learning app, or scrolled through social media only to be told, if you want to sound like a native speaker, you must memorize hundreds of idioms? You see lists of idioms everywhere. It is raining cats and dogs. A piece of cake. Barking up the wrong tree. Spill the beans. Beat around the bush. So you spend hours writing down long lists of idioms, memorizing their definitions, and trying to force them into your daily conversations or workplace meetings. And what happens when you finally use them? The native speaker or coworker looks at you slightly strangely. The conversation feels awkward, stiff, or overly dramatic. If this has happened to you, I am going to share a shocking truth that most traditional language courses will never admit. Obsessing over idioms is one of the biggest wastes of time for intermediate English learners, and in many cases, it makes you sound less natural, not more natural. Today, we are going to pull back the curtain and look at the real psychology and linguistic reality of idioms in modern spoken English. We will break down four critical topics. First, why forcing idioms makes you sound unnatural and outdated. Second, the crucial difference between passive idiom recognition and active idiom usage. Third, what native speakers actually use 80% of the time instead of idioms. The power of phrasal verbs and collocations. And fourth, the 10 modern, high-value idioms that native speakers truly use in daily life and professional workplaces today. Grab your notebook, sit comfortably, and let's separate the myths from reality. Let's begin by addressing the biggest misconception about idioms. Why do non-native speakers overuse idioms? Because they have been taught that idioms are a magical shortcut to sounding advanced. They think, if I say raining cats and dogs, everyone will think I speak fluent English. Here is the problem. Idioms are culturally hyperspecific, emotionally charged, and highly sensitive to age, geography, and context. When a native speaker uses an idiom, it flows effortlessly because it is tied to an intuitive cultural rhythm. But when an intermediate learner memorizes an idiom from a list, they often force it into situations where it doesn't belong. Let's look at a real-world example. Imagine you are in a serious business meeting, discussing a project delay, and someone asks about the solution. If you say, "Don't worry, completing this migration will be a piece of cake," it sounds childish, overly informal, and out of place in a serious corporate discussion. Or consider the classic idiom, "It is raining cats and dogs." Do you know how many modern native speakers actually say, "It is raining cats and dogs," in real life today? Almost zero. It is an outdated, cliched expression that native speakers might use playfully once a year. In real life, native speakers simply say, "It is pouring outside," or "It is coming down out there." When you use cliched, outdated idioms, you don't sound like a modern native speaker, you sound like a 1950s textbook. This brings us to our second core principle, the difference between passive recognition and active usage. In language learning, your vocabulary exists in two separate categories: your passive vocabulary and your active vocabulary. Your passive vocabulary consists of words and phrases that you understand when you hear or read them, but you don't necessarily use when you speak. Your active vocabulary consists of the core words and phrases that you can produce effortlessly, accurately, and naturally under real-time conversational pressure. Here is the golden rule of idioms. 90% of idioms belong in your passive vocabulary, not your active vocabulary. You should understand what "bite the bullet" or "under the weather" means so that when a colleague or a podcast host uses it, you don't feel confused. But you do not need to spend mental energy trying to force those expressions into every sentence you speak. Fluency is built on clarity, speed, and precision. If you try to juggle complex idioms while speaking, you increase your cognitive load, which causes hesitation, pauses, and awkward sentence structures. So, if native speakers aren't constantly using old idioms, what are they using to sound so natural, casual, and fluid? They are using two fundamental linguistic tools: phrasal verbs and high-frequency collocations. Let's explore phrasal verbs first. A phrasal verb is a combination of a basic verb, like get, turn, take, put, or look, combined with a preposition or adverb particle, such as up, out, off, down, or in. Phrasal verbs are the true lifeblood of spoken English. While textbooks teach formal, Latin-based single verbs, native speakers use phrasal verbs in 90% of casual and semi-formal conversations. Look at the difference in naturalness. Instead of saying, "We need to extinguish the fire," native speakers say, "We need to put out the fire." Instead of saying, "They decided to postpone the meeting," native speakers say, "They decided to push back the meeting," or "put off the meeting." Instead of saying, "I accidentally encountered an old friend," native speakers say, "I ran into an old friend." Instead of saying, "We must eliminate this error," native speakers say, "We must get rid of this error." Notice how much more natural, dynamic, and modern phrasal verbs sound. Mastering 50 common phrasal verbs will do 10 times more for your spoken fluency than memorizing 200 traditional idioms. Now let's examine high-frequency collocations. A collocation is a natural pairing of 2 or 3 words that native speakers consistently use together. For example, why do native speakers say, "make a decision," instead of "do a decision"? Why do they say, "heavy traffic," instead of "strong traffic"? Why do they say, "take a shower," instead of "make a shower"? There is no complex grammar rule explaining why, it is simply the natural acoustic pattern of the language. When you learn collocations, your English sounds immediately fluent and authentic because you are using the exact word combinations that native ears expect to hear. Let's look at 3 powerful collocation sets you can start using today. Set 1. Collocations with make. Make a mistake. Make an effort. Make a suggestion. Make sense. Set 2. Collocations with take. Take a break. Take advantage of an opportunity. Take responsibility. Take into consideration. Set 3. Collocations with have. Have a word with someone. Have a feeling. Have second thoughts. Have an impact on something. Focusing on phrasal verbs and collocations gives you the highest return on investment for your speaking fluency. Now, having said that, are all idioms useless? Of course not. There is a specific category of modern, conversational idioms that native speakers use every single day in offices, podcasts, and casual chats. These are idioms that are not cliched, not outdated, and are accepted across global professional English. Let's break down the top 10 modern idioms that are actually worth adding to your active vocabulary, along with real-world examples. Modern idiom number 1. To cut corners. Meaning: to do something in the easiest, cheapest, or fastest way, often sacrificing quality or safety. How to use it. If we want to build a secure app, we cannot afford to cut corners on testing. The construction company cut corners, and that is why the roof started leaking. Notice how practical and common that is in everyday life and business. Modern idiom number 2. To be on the same page. Meaning: to have the same understanding, agreement, or expectations as someone else. How to use it. Before we start this project, let's have a quick call to make sure we are all on the same page. I just want to ensure that management and our team are on the same page regarding the deadline. This is perhaps the single most widely used expression in international business English. Modern idiom number 3. To call it a day. Meaning: to stop working on something for the remainder of the day because you have done enough or reached a good stopping point. How to use it. We have been debugging this code for 6 hours. Let's call it a day and look at it with fresh eyes tomorrow. It's already 7 p.m. Let's call it a day, everyone. Modern idiom number 4. To touch base. Meaning: to make brief contact with someone to check in, exchange updates, or confirm plans. How to use it. I will touch base with you on Thursday to see how the client responded. Let's touch base next week after you review the proposal. Modern idiom number 5. To get out of hand. Meaning: to become uncontrollable, chaotic, or difficult to manage. How to use it. The meeting got a bit out of hand when everyone started arguing about the budget. We need to address this customer issue before it gets completely out of hand. Modern idiom number 6. To keep someone in the loop. Meaning: to keep someone informed and updated about ongoing developments. How to use it. Please keep me in the loop regarding any changes to the schedule. I wasn't kept in the loop, so I didn't know the meeting location had moved. Modern idiom number 7. To play devil's advocate. Meaning: to argue against an idea or take an opposing perspective for the sake of healthy debate, even if you don't necessarily disagree. How to use it. Just to play devil's advocate for a moment, what happens if our competitor releases a cheaper version next month? I like the design, but let me play devil's advocate and look at potential security flaws. Modern idiom number 8. To think outside the box. Meaning: to approach a problem creatively, unconventional thinking, or looking beyond traditional solutions. How to use it. Traditional marketing isn't working for this product, we really need to think outside the box. Our team was able to solve the bottleneck by thinking outside the box. Modern idiom number 9. To burn the midnight oil. Meaning: to work late into the night or early morning to finish an urgent task. How to use it. Our developers had to burn the midnight oil to get the patch ready for Monday. I was burning the midnight oil all week studying for my final exams. Modern idiom number 10. To see eye to eye. Meaning: to agree with someone or share the exact same perspective on a specific issue. How to use it. My manager and I don't always see eye to eye on design choices, but we respect each other's work. We had several heated discussions, but we finally see eye to eye on the project goals. Look at those 10 idioms. Notice how none of them sound like strange animal metaphors or archaic sayings. They are modern, professional, practical, and accepted everywhere English is spoken. Let's do a complete review and consolidation of our strategy regarding idioms. Rule 1. Stop memorizing long lists of outdated idioms. They do not make you sound fluent, they often make your speech sound cliched and unnatural. Rule 2. Treat 90% of idioms as passive vocabulary. Understand them when you hear them, but don't force them into your active speech. Rule 3. Focus 80% of your daily vocabulary building on phrasal verbs and collocations. They are the true foundation of natural, effortless spoken English. Rule 4. Selectively use modern, practical idioms like on the same page, touch base, keep in the loop, and call it a day in workplace and daily settings. True fluency is not about showing off rare, complex phrases. True fluency is about expressing your ideas clearly, concisely, and with effortless confidence. If you found tremendous clarity in this breakdown, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more authentic English communication strategies, and leave a comment below. Which of the 10 modern idioms we covered today are you going to use in your next conversation? Thank you for watching. Focus on clarity over complexity, keep practicing out loud, and I will see you in the next video.